What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan. I'm here with my co-host. He just won the award for Outstanding Achievement in Popular Pod, Dave Martinson.
I'm so happy to get the next best thing. Pat, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. We got a lot to talk about today, and we're gonna be talking about some reviews and things we didn't get to. Obviously, a lot of culture came out, but we're always playing catch up, so we figured take a week. Let's talk about some of the stuff we think we should be talking about, and we'll get to the other stuff a little later. So before we get too far into anything, hit that subscribe button. Go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod and give us a follow there. Share us with friends, and also follow us on Twitter at nostalgiapod, where we tweet about a lot of stuff we don't talk about in the pod. So we'll keep you up to date on everything. We kind of alluded to it in the intro. This Oscars news today, or I guess last week, dropping that they're going to be making a couple changes, but the main one, that there's going to be a new category called Outstanding Achievement in Popular Film. And you said, the second best thing. Do you really feel like this is second best thing? Because I feel like is this even an award you really want?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's there's a lot of snark going around it, right? And I think it really depends on what the award is defined as. The criteria is all TBD still, or at least not public yet. So I think there's a lot still to be known. In theory, I think it's a good idea, but I understand why some people are, making jokes about it. But I guess just to start, if your film was nominated for Best Achievement in Popular Film, Best Popular Film, and you're not nominated for Best Picture, does that feel like it's like a slight against your movie that it wasn't nominated for Best Picture, but nominated in this other category? On the other hand, the films that we assume will be in this category never get nominated for Best Picture, so they probably don't have that expectation. I could see you going either way with it, but what do you think? Do you think this is a smart idea to add to the award show, which they also said they're going to make a little shorter?
Yeah, my assumption is that this is going to have something to do with box office numbers, because there has to be some way to determine what makes a movie popular versus, I guess, technically unpopular or not as seen. I mean, maybe I'm off on that, but I think in that case, a lot of those films are made in a different way and with, a different scope in mind. Films that usually or have been getting nominated for Best Picture are not the huge budget movies most of the time. It's the indie films. It's the stories that, are a little bit more human, but don't draw as big of a crowd. So I think
Shape of Water made like 60 million last year.
Exactly.
So
great point.
Smaller fare.
So it's the type of thing where I do think there should be a way to honor it, but I think where the issue comes in is something like Black Panther, which in and of itself is just a good movie. Ryan Coogler absolutely nailed it. We reviewed it, so go check that out at soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod. It's right on the fringe. It's kind of like Dark Knight when it didn't get nominated, but people were saying it should have been. And my fear is that people will say, we'll just nominate this one, or we'll vote for this one for most popular. And then these movies that should be getting at least a nomination for Best Picture will end up actually not getting nominated. There's a lot of plus and minuses to it, but I think that's my major concern.
Yeah, I always think, would a film like Get Out, if it came out, a year later, be in this category instead,
Right.
have some less prestige to it. That is the fear, I suppose. But also, I mean, you remember 2016, there was a lot of buzz for Deadpool getting some attention. 2017, last year, there was a bunch. Logan, Wonder Woman, Girls Trip. Earlier, 2015, Straight Outta Compton. This year, in addition to Black Panther, Mission Impossible Fallout, there are popular films that are both well-reviewed and box office smashes. Right. So I think adding an extra award for that kind of attention is, I think a good thing to do. And yeah, maybe it'll bring some people in and help the ratings decline a little bit, sure. But just in general, I mean, anyone who's a fan of blockbuster films in general usually reviews them in a different way than we review, some art house film that we'd expect to be in the running for Best Picture, right? So I think this is just kind of an avenue for other studios that have different expectations to also get recognized, and it's not like, all these blockbusters now, they attract the A-list talent still, it's not like they're like the scourge of the industry. They keep the industry going. So I don't, and a lot of people being hyperbolic, saying, "Oh, will you make it to MTV Movie Awards?" I'm like, it's one category,
Yeah.
and Best Picture is still going to be won by the movies nobody saw, writ large. So I don't see the comp there. So yeah, I think once we know more, I think it should be cool. It'd be nice to see, those well done blockbusters get extra recognition beyond just getting them dollars.
Absolutely. Like Mission Impossible Fallout is something I think absolutely should be recognized at the end of the year for how great of an action film it was. And no matter what comes of it, if this is actually drawing eyes to films that a lot of people either aren't seeing or wouldn't give a chance, to get a little bit more shine to see that, I don't think that's a bad thing. So I think the Academy is actually making some pretty smart decisions in terms of trying to make the Oscars more relevant and trying to make award shows just relevant, at least more watchable might be a better way to say it. Someone that usually does pretty well, at least with popular movies, Disney. And we've been talking about a streaming service coming out, and some details recently emerged about what this service might look like. It looks like it's going to drop the end of next year. What other news came out about it that has you maybe your eyes raising a bit or you're intrigued by?
Yeah, I mean, we're just really getting some official confirmation. With the TCA summer press tour and whatnot, and a lot of people are giving talks, and obviously with the Fox acquisition, signed, obviously still going through, but looks like it's going to happen. We finally, get to see what the next, era of Disney's going to be, and part of that's a streaming service. And I thought an interesting thing to hear from their mouth was that the old Star Wars movies, all the Star Wars movies to this point, will not be on the service right away because of the pre-existing distribution deal they have through Turner through 2024,
right?
Which is actually some rights that they resold. So that's why they're on TNT and TBS. They sold those rights, I think, in 2016, so relatively recently, for like a few $100 million. So, and judging by the reports from Bloomberg, it's not like Turner's, anxious to sell it back to Disney, and how can you blame them? So that was interesting. Also, with the Fox deal, meaning that Disney becomes the majority stakeholder in Hulu, 60% controlling. They said that the R-rated films in the Disney catalog, as well as the ones they'll be inheriting from Fox and Fox Searchlight, would not be on the Disney streamer, but be on Hulu instead. So it's going to be a more family-friendly, quote, Disney brand service. But they also said that it'll be cheaper than Netflix, perhaps, given the smaller catalog. So, interesting to hear some of that stuff. But, I mean, it's going to be a slam dunk no matter what when it does come out. But apparently it's still over a year away.
Yeah, I mean, even just thinking about when they do get Star Wars on there finally, it may be a smaller catalog than Netflix. Obviously, Netflix is just pouring money into making their own content at this point, but it'll be maybe the most beloved catalog in any streaming service. I mean, not only the films, the animated films from our childhood, but all the IP that they've gotten. You have Favreau making a Star Wars series. You have Lady and the Tramp coming out on this, a live action Lady and the Tramp, which is very interesting to think about how they're going to make those dogs.
Why not, man?
But yeah, exactly. Why not keep putting out stuff that is going to draw eyes? So Disney, it'll be interesting to see how Netflix and Disney exist, or if they can exist together. It's going to be a bubble, like we talked about before.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting too because Netflix is still very much intertwined with this, because similar to the Turner thing, like the Marvel Netflix shows, they'll probably never leave Netflix. I mean, maybe future seasons would go to the new one if they wanted to keep something grittier on this new service. And then Ant-Man and the Wasp is the last MCU movie to be on Netflix, but all of the MCU is exclusive with Netflix. So, that's something they have to work out still, or just let the deal expire. But yeah, no, it's interesting just because I think the Disney streaming service, price whatever, will succeed just because of the ridiculous catalog. And you listen to anyone anecdotally speak about, having children these days, and they usually have to fucking rent or buy all like the Moanas and shit, right? Or they get lucky and one of them's on Netflix. So they're just going to hold parents hostage with this service. And given the big back catalog, even with the holes, including high profile things like Marvel and Star Wars, it'll be a slam dunk. So it'd be interesting to hear more as we hear more about like the original content beyond Favreau and Lady and the Tramp. But yeah, should be interesting. It's funny too because we just had CBS All Access announce that they're doing another Star Trek series with Patrick Stewart.
Yep.
And it's like, I mean, yeah, you got to attract eyeballs too. You know,
Yep.
They have way less subscribers than we know Disney will have. So the streaming war is always interesting to hear something.
I think as it ramps up 2019, that's going to be the story, is how all these companies are getting ready for it. And then 2020 is going to be when the real numbers are going to come out and how people are changing their viewing habits and their purchasing habits of these platforms. So a lot of really interesting stuff. We'll be talking about it. So stay tuned. Let's jump into some music though. And I want to start with, we talked about Parquet Courts, a Brooklyn band that dropped an album, Wide Awake, this year that I really liked. And then we were talking about maybe listening to this Dirty Projectors album, and I was like, I don't know, not super intrigued by them. I gave it a listen, and I don't think it's a perfect album, but it's a fun and listenable album, and I think it does a lot of interesting stuff. What was your take on Dirty Projectors' Lamplit Prose?
Yeah, I mean, you waved the flag. You said hard pass or pass anyway, so we didn't get to. I mean, the album came out on the 13th of July, so we're a little late, obviously. But yeah. No, I didn't have many expectations. I know, like, what's that big song? That really popular song
off their last album.
No,
Keep Your Name or.
But anyway, like I knew their one big popular song, but I wasn't really familiar with the catalog. I mean, this is what their 8th record. And like they're one of those like 2002 era New York rock scene, but they're not like the Strokes or Yeah Yeah Yeahs. They're more like LCD Sound System and Grizzly Bear. Like they're Brooklyn adjacent.
They are way more Brooklyn than either of those somehow.
And so it's interesting hearing a record from that. That band that time frame. Now Interpol has an album coming later this month, and Julian Casablancas released a Voids record that we weren't too high on. But yeah. So coming into it with that context, I didn't really know what to expect beyond my general distaste for everything I heard from Casablancas. But I was actually pretty surprised and pretty entertained. I thought it was like really dorky. Like I thought, what's his name? Longstreth, David Longstreth, the only like remaining member of the band. Like it's just like the band is just like a construct of puzzle pieces now, but he's still there, and it was airy and light and fun. I thought like the horns and the keys on a lot of the songs was really cool. So I actually enjoyed the song. I enjoyed the album.
Yeah, in listening back to some of their older work, their last album, their 7th one, which is self-titled, came out last year, and it was a little bit more vulnerable and exposing than their other albums, and darker too. And it was written around a breakup for Longstreth, and he actually didn't even tour around it, which I think was the first album they had done that in their whole career. So he came back with a much just more optimistic sounding album. It's just very fun to listen to, and there's a lot of like switch ups, and you have very like classic rock sounding guitars that then alternate with these like plucky sounding acoustics, and then the horns come crashing in, and you're like, oh, this is kind of like a party. This is like you're out on a summer's day just like chilling with your friends. And he had a lot of great features on it too. Sid, I think, anchors the opening track Right Now. She brings like a real like calmness to it, which I think is helpful. And then you had Rostam showing out on You're the One backing vocals, which I mentioned Vampire Weekend at the end of last week's pod. Rostam has been doing a lot of collaborations that have been flying under the radar, being pretty excellent this year. So there's a lot to like with this album. What was your favorite song?
I really liked What Is the Time? Like the melody on that.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it actually sounded pretty cohesive.
Absolutely,
really flowed pretty well. And the song I was referencing, their hit I knew before was "Stillness Is the Move." So Solange has a nice cover of that one. That's like their most played one on YouTube.
Shout out Solange, man. When's she dropping an album again?
It's been about 2 years, so maybe next year. Wouldn't be surprised.
Probably my favorite song off this album. I really like I Feel Energy. But It's a Lifestyle also really stood out to me, just as like a really fun chorus to bob your head to. So I think we recommend to give this a listen if you want just something light to chew on for your afternoon. Something that is, I think, is a little bit heavier to chew on, but has me really excited is H.E.R, H.E.R, which apparently stands for Having Everything Revealed.
Oh yeah.
Which you referenced this in our when the project dropped. She just dropped an EP for I Used to Know Her, the prelude, and it's her up, like I guess a teaser for her upcoming album. In a sense, she dropped 2 EPs, and one in 2016, one in 2017, a 2-part self-titled debut project, which got a lot of under the radar acclaim. And she has a really great sound, and it's kind of crazy because apparently H.E.R is an artist named Gabby Wilson, who had her big break when she was like 10 years old, and then started like appearing on TV shows up until she was 14. So kind of a prodigy in a sense.
Only 21 now too.
Which is nuts because she dropped her first one 2 years ago when she was 19, that EP H.E.R, which Rihanna was playing. Just gotten a lot of love. Did you like this prelude to her new album?
Yeah, so I thought her Volume 1 and Volume 2, the 2 EPs, which then she released as a compilation, I wasn't really too impressed with any of that. I just thought she was like, all right, she's competent, middle tier R&B, nothing too special. You know, it seems people in the industry like her, like working with her. Like she was on Daniel Caesar's album. I was like, all right, cool. You know, maybe I'll keep checking it out. But then I Used to Know Her, the prelude, this new EP, which is only like 6 joints. I thought she sounded better. I thought her singing was just better. I thought her singing was pretty nondescript, pretty average on the other EPs. And this one, it just seems more lively. I mean, Lost Souls is barely an R&B song, the first track, but she definitely has more of a presence on the mic now, which, you know, I find obviously much more enjoyable and, you know, just good sign. And, you know, it's still a quick listen, obviously. It's yet another EP, but it has me more interested in seeing what she's going to put out on RCA Records. And, you know, I don't think she's of the Georgia Smith class of new R&B figures, but you know, improvement at a young age is a good sign. So I'm gonna keep checking it out. What do you think?
She reminded me a lot of SZA, actually.
Sure.
Which, and they actually even look kind of alike, which is a little strange.
They do.
Yeah. Well, when I went onto her Spotify, I was like, is this just like a SZA like pseudonym or like another project?
Like Kill Edward is J. Cole, you know, it's one of those things.
Yeah, no, I thought there was a lot to like here. I didn't know if any song other than the first one, Lost Souls, stood out. And it sounds like she's actually doing like a Lauryn Hill impression a bit on that one. Just
Lauryn Hill's back in a big way in 2018.
Yeah, she's having a big year, man. We talk about winners and losers. I'm sure we'll do that pod at some point. I think she's got to be in the winners somehow. But yeah, it's interesting. I think that she's a very intriguing artist, and if you're looking for that like hazy, like sitting in a room, like just smoking, chilling, drinking, she's a good thing to put in the background, but it's nothing that pops off the speaker to me, I guess. I think she can get to that, you know, Georgia status, and I think Georgia's going to be like a rocket. I think she's going to be a huge artist in a couple of years, but I don't know if she has the same ceiling that Georgia has, or even SZA.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, right now I think of her. It's kind of insulting. I would say I kind of think of her like a Party Next Door, or like H.E.R on TDE, like one of those R&B artists that's like Sal is going to put out stuff, have fans. On this EP, the second Bryson Tiller feature I've heard in like 2 months that didn't do anything for me. Bryson, come on, man, keep going. But yeah, I think there might be something there.
Bryson Tiller, a loser of this year from this podcast, at least. You know, it's interesting because I actually felt like there's some artistry in her work. Like she has a pretty, I don't know, I think a decent year for sound. But then compared to like the next artist that we're going to talk about, Tierra Whack, man, this project is exciting as hell. Like you mentioned to me that there was this 15-minute, 15-song album where each song is exactly 1 minute. I was like, I have a feeling this is gonna be trash. Like that. I mean, we've been talking about how someone like Ski Mask the Slump God, how shorter is better. Give us tracks that are digestible. Exactly. But I was like, a minute? That's barely even a song. How can you make a song that? And then I watched this visual album with Whack World, and man, this impressed me. Talk to me about your impressions of Tierra Whack.
Yeah, I mean, she only had a handful of loose songs out before this came out, and like officially as Tierra Whack. It's funny because like 7 years ago, she started like freestyling under the name Drizzy Driz. She's out of Philly, so she met Mill back then. She met A$AP Rocky back then. She was on some radio stations like freestyle and just spitting and like showing her ability, right? And like Rocky actually compared her like sound, like flow to Kendrick back then, like 7 years ago, right? When she's 16. So then she comes back now as Tierra Whack, and the 1 minute songs could be incredibly gimmicky. And I do think that there is limitations to it, but because this album like flips sound minute to minute, you basically flip all genres across this album. There's a lot in there. And it's funny that it's an album that you need to revisit to digest more, despite only being 15 minutes long. So, well, I don't think it's like the end all be all. I do think there's limitations. A lot of these songs feel like they're just picking up in the end, and the next thing we go to like a jarring new sound for the next track, So I think, if anything, this is just this amazing proof of concept that Tierra Whack is incredibly talented and has a lot more to show us. So, it's impressive.
How fucking ballsy too for your first like real release to be like, yeah, I'm gonna do something that no one else has ever done, and I'm not only gonna make this album that's a heavy concept album and very very experimental, but I'm gonna do it with this video that is out there, and it switches up constantly, and she tries so many different styles. I give her a lot of credit because I don't think this is the best album of the year, but it's probably the most inventive one we've reviewed.
For sure.
And not only that, but the songs on here are good. Like I wanted more from a lot of these songs.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. It's like some of them time it's disappointing that the song already ended. Like this song fucking slaps. You know?
And she's funny too. Like I found myself during some of these songs being like, I had to go back and listen to Cable Guy because I was like, am I hearing this right? Go ahead.
I think Pent Cemetery is the same way. Both sounds awesome. It's funny, has a double meaning.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Pretty Ugly. There's a lot of songs like that. I cannot say anything else. Anything negative. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I feel like this is. It's a solid album in and of itself, but I feel like this just makes me want to hear more of what she's going to be able to do and how she's going to be pushing albums, what it means to make an album, what it means to take a concept and really explore it. I don't know. I guess my hope is that she stays unconventional, but at the same time I really want to hear like a full-length song from her. Like I would love to hear Fruit Salad.
She does. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she does have some full lengths, but I think now, with this in mind, this level of artistry achieved, what can you do? Like she has like incredibly high ceiling now in terms of like the next record she makes. She can make something really, really special. Right. If it's more conventional, and she could tell a great story. She clearly has a lot going on. So, again, very impressed. It's worth everyone's time because it doesn't take any time.
Exactly.
Although you might need like 30 minutes because you got to listen to it twice, which is incredibly hard to understand, but it's kudos to the work, man. It's good.
What was your favorite part of the video?
I jumped around a lot, but I thought the video was cool. I mean, it's honestly, it's kind of a no-brainer whether it's small to do one of those, got me a lemonade shit, but yeah, the video's dope.
I thought probably Fuck Off was my favorite one, where she's singing in this really high-pitched voice about this like ex-boyfriend and going around cutting the balloons as she's doing it. I thought that was awesome. Also Dr. Seuss, how she like comes out of the house at the very end, like breaks out of it, I thought was very cool. And probably my favorite song was probably Pet Cemetery on this. Just it's so catchy, and like I said, I would love to hear her actually make that a real song. So just a lot to love here. Any last thoughts on this before we move on to Saul?
Just definitely listen to Tierra Whack. Tell people about Tierra Whack, and not mainstream, not getting a lot of. I mean, she's got some like features and like profiles on like the Fader and Stereo Gum and stuff, but she's very unknown still. So spread the word.
Yeah, if you want to sound like you're like a true rap head and like like what's good, be like, yeah, Tierra Whack's my favorite new artist. People will probably be impressed by that.
The best rapper out of Philly is not Uzi or Meek Mill. It's Tierra Whack.
But Meek is still a vibe right now. Like,
it is true.
He's having a great year.
Meek fucks with Tierra though, so it's all good.
Talking about the winners and losers, Meek is a winner this year, no doubt.
Gets out of jail. Like, he can't be a loser.
A show we've kind of neglected, but has been a winner every year we've been doing this pod, and just keeps getting better. Better Call Saul. And I actually, when I moved, I wasn't like super excited about getting cable, but just based on the way the cable down here works, they were like, you can pay for internet or you can pay for cable and internet for the same price. And I was like, oh, okay, sure.
Do you have a phone as well?
No phone. I was not, I didn't commit to the phone, but I was like, all right. And then one of the benefits has been all these shows that I had to wait to come out on, streaming service in some way, I'm not able to stay on top of. And I am so excited about that because Better Call Saul season 3 blew me away. But now we're on season 4 and I am so pumped. And this first episode was also started off great. Let's talk a little bit about season 3 though, because we didn't really review it last year. What were your impressions of that, or what stood out to you?
Yeah, I had it in my top 10 last year, but again, we didn't talk about it too deeply because you were behind on it. I thought the show just continues to get stronger, and it's incredibly impressive, which is on a meta level really awesome to see, because a lot of people doubted the show for even existing as a prequel to, one of the golden age dramas, Breaking Bad, right? So the fact that it's been able to get so much better and achieve greatness on its own is a testament in itself. But season to season, it's continuing to improve as well. And, I think last season, just the way everything happened between Jimmy and Chuck, really coming to a head in the chicanery episode. It's just master class of writing. Vince Gilligan and Peter Gold are just, world class, obviously. And that's despite the fact that like there's not like hard action in this. Like Breaking Bad actually had a fair amount of action from time to time, right? But even Better Call Saul is more reserved and more like strategic in its plotting. There's a lot of acting with faces and like a lack of action being by design. So I think just as the shows continue to grow, the scripts get better, and everything just flows in an amazing way. You just have to have a certain level of patience to watch a show that's about the details. It doesn't necessarily hold your hand. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the show, and I like the premiere for season 4.
Yeah, season 3, I think, you mentioned chicanery, which was, I think, obviously the highlight, probably the best episode the show's ever done. And the way Michael McKean like falls apart at the end is like, I mean, give him the Emmy for that scene alone. But like you said, the details, there will be times when I will, I'll check my phone while something's going on with Mike Ehrmantraut. And then I'll come back, I'll be like, fuck, I have to rewind because I know I missed something little there that's actually going to make a difference to like what's going on in the story. And it's so masterfully crafted in the way that they interweave all the stories, because you basically have 3 stories going on. You have, Mike Ehrmantraut and kind of like how he's getting involved now with the Mexican cartels. You have Hector versus Gus and Nacho and what's going on with him within Hector's squad. And then you obviously have Jimmy versus Chuck. And now this season, I think it's going to be a little bit more of Jimmy turning into Saul Goodman. It looks like, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the way that they seamlessly go between those and have like little through lines and change it up between like like the Nacho story kind of being like the C or the D story for an episode, but still being some of the most intriguing stuff. Just amazing. And probably the person that gets the least shine, but shouldn't, is Ray Seahorn, who plays Kim. Rhea Seehorn plays Kim.
She's great.
Dude, she is fantastic. And she plays Kim so perfectly and brings so much heart to the show. Without, I mean, Jimmy, I think, is the heart because he's really this guy, this decent guy who just can't stop doing shitty things to try to get ahead. But he's decent until the end. He throws his business away to get Irene standing back with her friends in the nursing home. He's a good guy, but Kim is just like, she's the heart that makes this show beat. And I'm really interested to see how things devolve with her and Jimmy moving forward, because I feel like that's going to be the emotional climax of season 4.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny, leading up to this, all the press Vince Gilligan and Bob Odenkirk and all of them have done, they're like, yeah, we're at like the door of Breaking Bad. We're close. Mm-hmm. And, judging off the events of the finale and this new premiere, I mean, Hector's going to get in the wheelchair, we assume, from that stroke, right? And Jimmy emotionally might be taking a turn. Obviously, he was very cold to Howard at the end of the premiere with I guess that's your cross the bear mark.
Yeah,
whistling in the kitchen. It was a nice callback to when Walt was really nonchalant after Todd shoots that little kid at the train, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we might be seeing a shift for him, and I think that's something that people have always kind of been like, like, is it going to get there? Is it going to take its sweet ass time? Blah blah blah, right? And the show has already been renewed for a 5th season, which sometimes can be a bad thing if we're coming to the end. But I think I trust Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould to have a plan in place for this, and I think everything's just it's just so interesting watching the characters be the characters, because they grow and evolve so much that it's tough. Like, can I really predict what's going to happen this season? Really, no. I mean, maybe does he become Saul straight up this season? Yeah, I guess, but I don't have much else to predict. But like, we got the Lydia name drop. Mike is in that company now. That was a big part of Breaking Bad, right? So we're getting there. So I'm intrigued to see how it works.
Well, and I think the other intriguing thing about this show, and this is something that the writers have talked about, is that Saul, Walter White dies, and that story is over then. Saul doesn't die at the end of Breaking Bad.
No.
But, and assuming what we see from his time in Cinnabon is, I think his name is Gene at Cinnabon, there could very well be part of a season or maybe even a whole season dedicated to that and what's going on with him as a way to close out his story. Gilligan said that time is essential to understanding his arc and how his story finishes. So season 5 might not be the last one, although it would be interesting to have Breaking Bad be 5 seasons, then the prelude to it be 6 seasons. But still, I mean, the other thing I think is really interesting is Odenkirk. I don't think anyone ever thought he had chops like this. And he's obviously been a rising star since Breaking Bad, and he does a lot of voice work, and he's in The Post last year, and has gotten more dramatic roles. But like his performance in, I think it was called Smoke, this last episode, those are the type of moments. Seeing just the way he subtly plays, the turmoil that's going on behind Saul with his brother's death, and making sense of his role in it is really impressive. And I just think this show probably can't be any better than it is, but they kind of keep pushing it forward. So I wouldn't be surprised by anything.
Yeah. On that note, I mean, they take their time with all the subtleties, right? Like Nacho, when they show us Hector going in the ambulance, and all we get is Gus giving Nacho a little side eye to show that he's suspicious, right? And then we don't see him in the wheelchair. We don't get that obvious conclusion right away. We see Nacho agonizing over how to dispose of the pills, and like that's like there's a lot of time dedicated to that, something that's relatively inconsequential, but just that's just the way the show is plotted, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's human. It's just, I mean, I guess my last question for you, and maybe you have some other things you want to talk about here. Muhammad Ali versus Bruce Lee, who you got?
I also had that written down.
Yeah.
So I'm not like super well versed in Bruce Lee's real abilities. I know like some like MMA heads are like, he wasn't a real fighter, he was more showy. So like I don't actually know like what the right side history is on Bruce Lee's real abilities, but I do stand by the fact that I'd take an MMA fighter over a boxer in a real life fight. So assuming they're both in their primes and Bruce Lee was the real deal, I'd go with him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Give us the McGregor versus Mayweather fight in the octagon. I want to see it. Any last thoughts on Saul?
I think one of my favorite things about Saul is that every time it comes back, I watch Breaking Bad clips on YouTube for like an hour and a half, just like remembering stuff. Whether it's me like remembering like what happened with Tuco again, like how did Tuco really impact everything, or just watching like the great stuff like Ozymandias or whatnot. And it's just like Vince Gilligan is kind of underappreciated somehow. You know, he's quietly just cranking out Better Call Saul, and it's fucking superb. And
Yeah,
you know, it's almost like it's not like flashy or showy to talk about it or sing its praises, you know. So here we are.
Yeah, Gilligan is incredible, man. I mean, it's in a lot of ways I see like him and David Simon similarly, where they build these worlds so thoroughly and they pay so much attention to detail and just making all their characters seem so human in different ways. Like apparently Howard was supposed to be like the main antagonist throughout the series, and then they kind of figured like, oh, Chuck fucking Jimmy over would be way better, and then letting Howard become humanized would make a more complicated story. And I was like, oh, that's such a smart way to not only build a story, but to also look at humanity and how things actually affect people. I mean, can't say enough good things about him. And then, I mean, this will probably be the last big show that we have right now for this year. I mean, what, Maisel comes out end of the year.
I mean, not dated as marvelous as Maisel, but we have the Deuce coming back.
Right.
David Simon, speak of the devil.
Maniac.
Yep. Maniac, the Jonah Hill, Emma Stone reunion on Netflix from Cary Fukunaga is coming. Homecoming, Julia Roberts' first TV show on Amazon is in November. There's some interesting stuff. We assume Mr. Robot will still be back this fall. Let's see. There's a few other things. So, I mean, that's crazy because like we have Better Call Saul. We already had Atlanta and Killing Eve and Succession and Barry and Glow. Right? Like, had a great year, in my opinion. And the role in the fucking Matthew Weiner's follow up to Mad Men, The Romanovs, comes out in October on Amazon. So
a lot of good new shows.
Mindhunter probably be back as well. The Crown will be back. So yeah, it's going to be a nice fall.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about because I think 2016 when we were starting the pod, it was like a big time of transition. You had things like Breaking Bad stopping, but Saul starting up. And now it feels like there's a big wave of really good new shows on the horizon. I mean, Succession and Barry are probably the two most known ones right now, but you just mentioned a handful of shows that could all be in the consideration for best show of the year by the end of this year. And you have shows like, we said Saul probably is getting down to, after the season, probably one or two more. You have Mr. Robot, which I can't see really going past the fifth season. So in the next couple of years, there's going to be a new guard. It's really, I mean, TV might not be peak TV anymore. You don't have the Mad Men, the Breaking Bad, those sort of shows right now, but you just have so much quality everywhere, and it's going to make these streaming wars even more interesting as they move forward.
It is interesting though that there's no Wire, there's no Breaking Bad, there's no Mad Men, but we do have the follow-ups from all those creators and Saul, Romanovs, and the Deuce. So yeah, that's something, right? And the Deadwood movie's coming back,
Yeah, I feel like I watched the first season of Deadwood, and then I didn't follow up the second season, but probably should get to that before that movie comes out. There's so much TV to watch, though, dude. I mean, like we didn't even talk about the Americans yet, just because we haven't had time to catch up.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah, a lot of stuff to be looking forward to. Stay subscribed to Nowstalgia Pod. What do we got next week, Dave?
Yeah, so everyone will know we didn't talk about BlacKkKlansman this week.
Right.
It's already out from Spike Lee. Amazing reviews. I've seen it already. It's awesome. But we'll talk about that next week. The best debut record, New Zealand rock band that we both really like, is also out. We'll talk about that next week. And then we'll also talk about stuff coming out this Friday, namely albums from Nicki Minaj and Ariana Grande, Mitski as well. Yeah. Little Pump's also dropping, Harvard Dropout. Moses Sumney dropped a 3-track EP. So stuff we don't get to, check out our Spotify playlist as well. We update that all the time. But yeah, a lot of music and BlacKkKlansman next week.
Nowstalgia Best of 2018 on Spotify, Nowstalgia Pod on Twitter, SoundCloud.com/Nowstalgia Pod. And if you're watching this video, you probably already know where to find our YouTube video, but you can search Nowstalgia on YouTube and you'll find us there. We got a lot of stuff to be talking about. I was just listing some things I'm excited for the end of this year. And there's a ton of good movies. And I think if we look at like the three spheres we usually look at, which is TV, music, and movies has probably been the one I've been least excited for somehow, which is crazy because I think it just speaks to how much good music and how much good TV there is right now. Just a lot of great content. So
absolutely.
Yeah, stay tuned and share us with friends. Help us grow. We appreciate you. We love you. Peace out.